progress.
Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Monday edition of our show. I'm your host, Joe Grado. I want to thank each and every one of you for kicking off your week with us here at A's Day. We appreciate you, the lovely audience. Today is Monday, November 10th. We've got a good show for you. Nick Kurtz last week won the Silver Slugger Award, for his position at first base. So we'll dive into his season as a refresher. If you don't know already how historic his rookie season was and how historic him winning the Silver Slugger at first base in the American League truly was too as well. Then last week, spring training, we were made accustomed to some notable exhibitions. The full spring training schedule is out, but we'll start and highlight some key exhibition games, some in Vegas, some against the World Baseball Classic teams. So some games that'll pique your interest in the month of March as we ramp up for the new year of the 2026 162 campaign. Then we will finally explore the second base market, see what potential free agents are out there, as well as any potential trade candidates that could line up for the green and gold. And then before we get on out of here, a little word of note. The A's social media team has officially turned on the notification feature once again. It had been 665 days, I believe. So we will dive into what that means for the A's and the fan base too as well. Lots to talk about today. We're keeping it rolling through this offseason and excited to get back to more green and gold talk and a day closer to a new season for the Athletics. So after the opening music, we'll get right to today's show and talk about the A's. Holy Toledo. Let's go A's. All right there, A's Day fans. Thank you again for kicking off your Monday, kicking off your new week with us here at A's Day. Just as a reminder, continue to listen, download wherever you like to listen to your favorite podcast episodes. You'll be able to find A's Day. Continue to do so. We appreciate the audience that we have had and the continued growing audience that we continue to welcome in to our open A's community. Additionally, please be sure to follow along our content on our social media platforms, our channels, on Instagram at A's Day Baseball Podcast, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at A's Day Baseball, and be sure to check out our YouTube channel for video edition episodes just like this. If you are watching right now, it is available on our YouTube channel. I'll have the green logo just like you can see behind my shoulders on this video edition, along with our other baseball content that we have created at Destination Hotspots at baseball destination cities across the country, along with our professional baseball player interviews, and so much more that we are going to continue to create in 2026 and beyond. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel for sure. Some exciting baseball content outside of our podcast episodes. And be sure to become an official subscriber of A's Day. Check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day. For just $2 a month, you'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirts, A's autographed memorabilia, future A's game tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, let's get into our first topic of discussion and start with the good news that one of the three A's nominees to win a Silver Slugger Award at their respective position came through. So the Silver Slugger, so they have a team for both the American League and the National League. Those awards are voted on a conglomerate of MLB coaches and managers to determine the best offensive players at each respective defensive position around the diamond. So there's one at first base, one at second base, catcher, and so on and so forth. And there's one for the American League and one for the National League. So the Athletics had 3 nominations I believe they were Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, and Brent Rooker. We knew that the competition was going to be stacked, especially for Langoliers and Rooker. We know what Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, did behind the dish for Seattle, so you had to imagine that he was a runaway at that position. Then the outfield and designated position spots are loaded with talent too as well. So while Rooker had an all-star season, there was a lot of formidable American League hitters at his position that he was going up against for sure. So that was a tough battle. But the A's did have one winner, one recipient that was well-deserving, had a monster rookie year. Of course, we're talking about the American League First Base Silver Slugger Award winner, Nick Kurtz. Congrats to him. The Big Amish delivers the hardware on Friday. The AL Silver Slugger team was announced, and Kurtz was the winner for the award at first base. What a year it truly has been for Kurtz. It took him under a year from the day he got drafted, precisely 283 days, and 33 games in the minor leagues for him to make his major league debut. After it took him 17 games to crush his first major league home run, the power just went off on a tangent from there. On his way to a stat line in 117 games played, a .290 batting average with 36 home runs, 86 runs batted in, and a 1.002 OPS. He led all first basemen in home runs and OPS and was second as compared to all Major League first basemen, only behind Pete Alonso, who I believe had 38 for the New York Mets. He becomes the first rookie first baseman to win a Silver Slugger in franchise history, and he's the third A's first baseman to win the award, joining Mark McGwire, who won the Silver Slugger at first base at the conclusion of the 1992 and 1996 seasons, and Jason Giambi brought home the American League Silver Slugger at first base for the 2001 season. This is after there had been a bit of a drought in terms of A's players winning the Silver Slugger award. Last year, now there's two back-to-back. The A's have back-to-back players win this award. Last year, Brent Rooker won the Silver Slugger award in the American League, and the last time that an A's player had won the Silver Slugger award was back in 2002 when Eric Chavez won the Silver Slugger at third base. And that's also the last time the A's, as a franchise, have had back-to-back winners of the Silver Slugger, where Chavez won in 2002 and Giambi won in 2001. Additionally, some more history here. Kurtz becomes the second rookie first baseman to win the award, joining Jose Abreu, who accomplished the feat back in 2014 during his rookie campaign for the Chicago White Sox. And this marks the fourth straight season across all of baseball that a rookie has won a Silver Slugger, joining Jackson Merrill, who won it last year for the San Diego Padres. In 2023, Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles won a Silver Slugger. And then the year before that, Julio Rodriguez back in 2022 from the Seattle Mariners won a Silver Slugger. So you're seeing a lot of this young talent develop sooner than expected. I know a lot of these guys that we mentioned have come in with heightened expectations, but typically in the grand scheme of development at the professional level, at the major league level, you're going to see guys take a little bit more time to get going a little bit, but you're seeing these high aspiring prospects really make their mark and make their debut sooner rather than later. I mean, that's crazy. Kurtz, under a year, goes from playing at Wake Forest, playing first base, to being on his way. He wins the Silver Slugger, gets nominated for the Hank Aaron Award, which is the top 10 offensive player in the American League. And then he's well on his way. It is going to be named later tonight. Most likely, Nick Kurtz is going to be named the Rookie of the Year too as well. So, what a storybook season it has been for the 22-year-old, and I'm sure he would be saying it, and A's fans and baseball fans everywhere of Kurtz are saying it. The best is yet to come. He's literally just getting started. He's not even close to his peak physical maturation, and he's only going to continue to develop more and more as an overall hitter. So exciting stuff to come for Kurtz. Just wanted to start off the show congratulating the Big Amish on winning the Silver Slugger. I'm sure over the course of your career, you better make some space for some future hardware. I'm sure it's going to be coming in droves. Very excited to see what year two has in store for the Big Amish. All right. So, Nick Kurtz is the A's Silver Slugger Award winner this year. Congrats to him. Let's switch our focus a little bit and talk about the spring training schedule being released. So the schedules for all teams have been released across the board. Just wanted to touch upon some notable exhibition games that piqued my interest that may pique yours too as well. So if you didn't know before mentioning specific games that the A's do hold their spring training down in Arizona, down in Mesa. We actually had the opportunity, thanks to Visit Mesa, and we're actually going to do an ad read for them today. They welcomed us in to capture content of the hotspots around Mesa, and that gave us the opportunity to be able to cover the A's during their spring training portion as well. We covered the A's for 3 days during their spring training practices and had the opportunity to take in their spring training home opener as well. Great all-in-all experience. Got to connect with, it was about 18 players throughout the franchise, whether at the major league level or minor league too as well. We were able to get some good quips, some good content, some on camera, some audio, but it was definitely a great opportunity. And you got to see your favorite A's players up close and personal. With the timing that we went to as well, we went towards the end of February, so it was the last week as spring training practices are going on, but it's leading up to the first week of spring training games. So typically at that point, it seems like that is right before schools everywhere go out for spring break. So that's when you're going to see an increase of crowds go to these events, these practices, these games. But if you're looking for more of a low-key, slower speed, going to spring training practices is definitely going to be the lowest attended. And that's how it's been. We've been to many camps across multiple teams in Arizona and in Florida too as well. So it's definitely, if you're looking for a more intimate baseball experience, if you're a fan of collecting autographs, it's the players are very fan-friendly. At a lot of these facilities, they're walking right by you, or there's just simply a chain link fence between you and the player, and they're more than happy to stop, talk with fans. So it's a great opportunity if you want to see baseball from a different perspective as compared to just going to a game up, for the A's perspective, just going up to a home game at Sutter Health Park or seeing them on the road during the regular season. This is a good opportunity to see the A's before the games get started, the regular season, because the atmosphere, while they are getting prepared to achieve their goals throughout the 6-7 month campaign, that journey that is lying ahead, spring training has a lot more of a laid back feeling, and these guys aren't having the day-to-day rigors of feeling that pressure of win or loss every single day. It's definitely a good way that they're easing their time into the season, creating that team unity, that camaraderie, but also it just seems like they have a lot more time in between their morning practice sessions, and then they have the rest of their days to unwind, whether they just want to explore the area, kind of recoup and prepare for the next day. Whatever the case they may be, their schedules are a little bit more on the laid-back variety, especially leading up to those spring training games and then before the regular season even too as well. So if you are thinking of planning a spring training trip, highly recommend head on down to Mesa. You'll be able to see the A's up close and personal. They play their games at Hohokam Stadium, but their spring training practices are held down the street at Fitch Park. It's a short walk apart, but at most like a 3-4 minute drive. Definitely can't miss it. It's on that same main street in Mesa, and they have the A's logo signs from the road that you can see too as well. But those are your two locations and destinations. And if you want to have an itinerary put together or know some different hotspots to check out, be sure to connect with Visit Mesa, visitmesa.com. They have a wonderful staff. They're always open to giving you suggestions, creating an itinerary of how you can have the best adventure besides just checking out the A's during your time in Mesa. Maybe some best places to stay, best places to eat, maybe some outdoor adventure like some hiking, and the Canyon Beach adventure too as well. Revel Surf, there is a lot to enjoy, especially that time of year. Much better weather than compared to nationwide on the whole as we come towards the back end of the winter at that time. All right, so that just gives you a little bit of an overview of the A's, of where they compete in terms of spring training, and definitely just from a first-person point of view, highly recommend getting down there and checking out the green and gold from a more intimate perspective. All right, let's get back, talk about the schedule a little bit. So, like I mentioned, they do compete in the Cactus League. Their first game on the exhibition schedule is Saturday, February 21st, when they head to Camelback Ranch to take on the Chicago White Sox. So that'll be at the White Sox spring training facility at their stadium. They actually, fun fact for you, share a spring training home, the White Sox, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The A's first home game, so their spring training home opener at Hohokam Stadium, will be the following day on Sunday, February 22nd, against the Cleveland Guardians. And just something, a couple more of note here. A's, they will, so this year, all the Team USA is going to be represented by a conglomerate of Major League players that are going to compete in the World Baseball Classic. It happens once every 3 years, I believe. I know they've changed the formatting on that with me a couple times, so please fact check me if I am wrong there. But I do know that is something that doesn't happen every year. But this is the year that the World Baseball Classic, it's going to be countries competing against each other, and you are going to see Major League players playing for their respective home country because you do have a league filled with guys from everywhere across the world, so very exciting. Definitely a way to ramp up regular season baseball. You get that intensified postseason tournament-like atmosphere. We're treated to an absolute bear of a matchup last time. I know this was back when Shohei Ohtani was with Japan and Mike Trout was stepping in the box for Team USA. It went 7-8 pitches, I believe, and it's one of the most historic at-bats that you could ever seen of two of the greatest players to play Major League Baseball going up against one another. So you have opportunities for historic matchups like that. So just wanted to give a little bit of a foundation there. We'll do more of a World Baseball Classic preview as it gets much closer, for sure, on our Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players podcast. But also, if we have any guys that are going to be coming from the A's representing on any of the World Baseball Classic teams, we'll be sure to do a little preview on who will be represented in that tournament and give you a little bit more preview of the Classic as a whole. All the rosters haven't been officially announced yet, so as it gets closer, we'll be sure to keep you all up abreast about that. So with that, there are going to be World Baseball Classic teams playing a game against Major League teams in both Arizona spring training camps and Florida spring training camps as well. So they've been selected, and the A's are going to play host at Hohokam Stadium to Team Brazil on Tuesday, March 3rd. So that's going to be a unique matchup. You're going to be seeing a team in Brazil getting ready to compete in the World Baseball Classic, going up against the green and gold. I'm sure they'll provide a lot of unique professional at-bats and matchups for sure. If you are down there, be sure to check that out. And they will be, again, another spring training schedule of note. They will be hosting Big League Weekend once again out in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Ballpark. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, with two split squads, will be going up against the A's on March 7th to 8th. So that's just more of an opportunity for people in the Vegas area to start getting accustomed to the A's playing in their market, as the plan is for the A's to call Las Vegas their home for the 2028 season and beyond. So that is their way to be able to grow the fan base in that area and for people to get to know who this A's team is. I know there is a lot of growth that is still to come, but I'm sure there will be a lot of familiar faces on that A's team when it is time for them to head to Vegas. So that's a cool opportunity to for the A's to get out there to Vegas even for just a couple days. And then finally, the A's will be hosting the spring breakout game. Again, both in Florida and Arizona, all the teams have a spring breakout game where teams give their prospects their top prospects an opportunity to play against another organization's top prospects, just to get more eyes, to get them more professional experience on a bigger stage indeed. So the A's are going to be playing host at Hohokam Stadium on March 22nd, which is a Sunday, against the Brewers' top prospects. So you'll want to tune in to that to see the A's of tomorrow. Check out the A's website for tickets and connect with Visit Mesa, like I had mentioned, to plan your next spring training trip today. You'll certainly be glad you did. be sure to tune in to these exhibition games so that it can pique your interest and get you ready for another 162 slog and get the opportunity to know your green and gold going into their to opening day and beyond for sure. All right, we are going to take a quick break here to do an ad read like I had mentioned for Visit Mesa. We appreciate them partnering with us to be able to capture unique content to entertain and educate you, the lovely A's Day audience. So we'll do a quick ad read and we'll get back to the rest of today's show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome to Mesa, Arizona, a destination for every season. Experience a destination where adventure culture and culinary experiences are limitless. As the gateway to the stunning Sonoran Desert and Tonto National Forest, Mesa invites you to explore its scenic waterways, kayak through winding canyons, or paddleboard along the Salt River. For a one-of-a-kind desert adventure, ride the waves at Revel Surf at Cannon Beach, the country's first surf park of its kind. Downtown Mesa is a vibrant hub, home to the Mesa Art Center, public art, award-winning breweries, and local shops. Food lovers can explore the Fresh Foodie Trail and the diverse flavors of Mesa's Asian District. Sports fans can experience MLB spring training with the Chicago Cubs and athletics, or visit one of North America's largest youth sports complexes. As the world's first autism-certified city, Mesa is dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity for all visitors. All right, we're back with the back half of today's show. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and explore the second base market. So we'll start with the free agents available. We didn't break down every single free agent that is available at the second base market because it's, to be honest, it's not as deep as you would think. So we kind of put it at a point where if it was a guy below a certain WAR value or a certain age, because at the end of the day, I don't think the A's are going to be looking for a stopgap at this position. I do think if they are going to bring someone in, it's going to be someone that's looking on a longer term contract, like a 2-3 year plus type of deal. So I don't know if they're going to get that in free agency or on the trade market, but I do think there were viable options. At the end of the day, there's a couple that stood out to me, but I don't know what the A's are looking to invest in this position. So we just wanted to get a little bit of creative here, but if you don't hear some names on here, it's just because more than likely we believe that they're either going to go back to the team they played with during the 2025 season, or they're going to be the candidates that fall under the 1 year prove it deal or connect you to the next 1 year deal type of player. I think they did that last year in a couple instances where they had Gio Urshela coming to third base to be the stopgap third baseman. They brought in Luis Arias to be kind of a similar either third or second base. Again, these 1 year veteran stopgap options, I don't think they're looking for that necessarily right off the bat. If they do switch their gears and they kind of have more confidence in the longevity and health of Zach Geloff, or they even have some internal discussions and feel a lot stronger about some of their in-house candidates that will be competing for second base, like a Max Muncy or a Dal Hernandez, depending if he falls at second base or third. Same thing with Muncy, who's primarily a second baseman, but you can see a world where he may be tried at third base as well. And then obviously they're going to have some discussions to see how real they truly believe the rise of Leo DeVries is going to be, because he is only going to be entering his age 19 season, but he's already a Double-A Midland. And most likely that's where he's going to start the season. And with him being a primary shortstop, that brings up another discussion if they want to bring him along as the primary shortstop for the big league club as well and move Jacob Wilson to second, or if they feel confident at Jacob Wilson being a cornerstone shortstop for the present and foreseeable future, and have DeVries come up as a second baseman. A lot of good problems and future discussions to be held there, but I'm sure they're having those now as free agency is kicking up into gear. And typically you'll see free agency really kick up in December and January once those winter meetings have come and gone. But for now, let's just explore some interesting free agent options to begin. Then we'll talk about a couple trade candidates too as well. So we'll start with someone that has been now a 7-year veteran, very familiar with the name and the player because he has played in the AL West for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim for the entirety of his career. Entering his age 29 season, we're talking about Luis Rengifo. For the 2025 season, he played in 147 games, which was the most of his career. He batted .238 with 9 home runs, 43 RBIs, and a .622 OPS. His expected contract value falls somewhere after research around 2 years, $22 million. So Rengifo is someone of a bit who's got a little bit of an offensive pop, but is also someone who could be quite versatile defensively too as well. He could play second base, third base. He could play corner outfield in a pinch. He's someone that I do think is going to add some length to your lineup, but if he's not the everyday player, could definitely add some length to your overall position player group too as well. He's not necessarily someone that would be, like I said, I think he's grown accustomed to being that everyday third baseman. I think primarily last year he played third base. But I do think he's someone that has plenty of experience at second base due to the Angels, either some ineffectiveness or some injury need where he would fill in. I would feel very confident sliding him in over there. And I do think you get that veteran bat right away. And he's someone that I do feel like could stick around more than just a year or two, especially if there's good cohesion with the lineup. Having that left-handed threat is definitely good to lengthen this lineup too as well. You don't want to get too right-handed heavy. I think Rengifo would make a lot of sense here. The main concerns would just be some injury concerns. He does have some health history here in the past. Like I did mention, the 147 games played is the most of his career. Before that, it was like 119, 107. He does miss time, but this year he stayed relatively healthy. I do think still him being in the midst of his peak, of his prime, I do think this could be a good signing to bring in. You're going to get the best years that he has remaining. And I do think him coming in, you could do that 2-year deal. It's very team-friendly, and if you want to enhance a little bit, have that third-year option as well. Because with him only entering his age 29 season, I do think he still has a lot of good baseball in front of him and could mesh well with this roster. So star him as a potential option. Could also see him going back to the Angels, but I do think there'll be suitors for his services for sure. All right, next option, Dylan Moore. So he was someone that was a mainstay with the Seattle Mariners for 6 seasons. Before last year, he was split between the Texas Rangers and Seattle Mariners. Had a tough year last year, 106 games, a .201 batting average with 11 home runs, 25 RBIs, and a .642 OPS. He's someone that's looking for a 1 to 2 year deal. Entering his age 33 season, I don't think this is someone necessarily that's there for the long term. But I do think, again, you get someone in with experience, has that AL West experience as well. I do think he gives you a little bit of versatility. He's an infielder, but he also can play outfield as well. And I do think there is you can get a couple good years still left with Moore, but I do think he is someone, if you're looking for more cost-effective veteran spot here, he's someone, like I said, I don't think he'll be someone with the A's for 4 or 5 years, but could see him if it all works out and shakes out right for the next 2 to 3 years. So Falls, this would probably be closer to that stopgap route, because at the end of the day, I don't see, if you bring in someone like Moore, I do think he would make it through the year. I don't think he would be someone like Urias or Urshela that get DFA'd at some point, unless the performance really tracks off that harshly. But I do think him, even getting the opportunity to play in Sacramento, he would see some of his offensive numbers uptick a little bit. So that was more of probably a last resort option here at this position, just to add some depth. I don't think he's your everyday starting second baseman option, but he is an option at the end of the day. And this just kind of paints a picture of where the second base free agent market currently is. Because there's only 3 more guys to really talk about that really piqued my interest. Moore would probably be the one that piqued my interest the least. These next 3 were probably a little bit closer up, higher on the list. This one in particular, Jorge Polanco, entering his age 33 season, an established vet for sure. His first 10 seasons were with the Twins, and then the last 2 with Seattle. So a 12-year vet, someone that just knows how to be a professional, and he has a flair for the dramatic too as well. He was a postseason hero for the Mariners this year. He had the walk-off knock in the 15th inning of Game 5 of the American League Division Series to defeat the Detroit Tigers and send the Mariners to the American League Championship Series for the first time since 2001, with an opportunity to face off against the Toronto Blue Jays, where that series ended up going 7 games. But Polanco hit some clutch home runs and hits in the American League Championship Series as well. And his overall production was quite solid. He had a huge, massive start, kind of dropped off in the middle of the season, and had a strong finish, including, in my opinion, a pretty solid postseason across the board. But for the 2025 campaign, he played in 138 games. He batted .265 with 26 home runs, 78 RBIs, and an .821 OPS. His contract value is expected to hover somewhere around the 3 to 4 year range, 75 to 80 million plus dollar range. So this is someone in that you're bringing in a more financially firm investment in. This is someone that you're investing. Excuse me, I kind of got repetitive there a little bit. You're investing long-term assets in. Those are the words I was looking for. Polanco is someone, I don't think necessarily he would be the cornerstone of, or one of the cornerstones of this A's franchise if you bring in a guy like Polanco, but I do think he gives you more stability up the middle. Is he the best defender? Not necessarily, but he holds his own. And, I mean, those numbers, the 26 home runs, 78 RBIs, 821 OPS, the batting average is 20-plus points over a league average. You're getting a little bit of everything, and you're going to get someone that is going to be available. To slide him in there, like I said, in this situation, you slide in Polanco as the starting everyday second baseman and then have Muncy move over to third base. I do think you're making your infield better in that way. You're bringing in an established veteran in Polanco that you have him for now, but you'll have him for those early Vegas years too as well. I'd probably feel more comfortable in this situation if you can get him on a 3-year contract. Because I think where the A's payroll is, finances shouldn't be an issue. There's a lot of room for growth to be able to bring on player contracts. So I'm not worried about the money in this situation. I'm worried about years. Because you will be entering his age 33 season at some point during the season. So that's fine for this year. Probably real good for next year too as well. But then you'll start to see just some natural regression age 35 season and beyond. So if you are the A's looking to go where you're hoping to go, bringing in someone like Polanco I think would be great for this year, next year. Third year, sure, but then potentially more of that veteran platoon bat and then more there for his veteran prowess and maybe help groom Leo DeVries come along at that point. But I would love this move. I do. I think this would be my favorite move if the A's were going to go the free agency route to improve their second base position. I do believe they do need to upgrade just to have, again, I think it's second base or third base, depending on how you shake out your infield. Because, again, this is going to be a topic for another day, but I believe Max Muncy should be in the everyday lineup. But to me, it's just a matter of fit, so it's just a matter of second base or third base. So that's why I think if you go more in on the second base market, then you want to have Muncy get your looks at third base. And then vice versa, if you're going to make a big splash at third base, then Muncy should be, I think, in my opinion, every day there at second base. But in this case, in this scenario, you're bringing in Polanco. You're going to bring in someone that you're going to get 130-plus games. You're going to get 20-plus home runs. You're going to get 250-plus above-average defense, and someone that's going to be able to have a knack for coming through a runners in scoring position. Someone that has that postseason experience too as well, because I do think that's going to be important when assembling this roster for 2026 and beyond. Because, again, I've mentioned this in previous offseason episodes that I think the A's are on the trajectory to be in the postseason discussion next year. And while what matters there is performance, I do think having some increased veteran experience, but then also postseason experience in that room can be very helpful. So I do think, especially for the position player group, there's not a ton of that in there. There just flat out isn't. That's just it's a very talented group, but it's very inexperienced. So I do think bringing in Polanco to be an anchor in that way, I do think could be quite fruitful for the present and for the future too as well. So Polanco, I think he would be a solid second base free agent candidate. marking it now. He would be my favorite one. My second favorite out of the free agent groups, again, because I do think there are some viable trade candidates that could fit just as well, if not better. But on the free agency side of things, let's move to our next candidate, talking about Gleyber Torres. He'll be entering his age 29 season. Can't believe that. Seems like he's been around forever. Played 7 seasons with the New York Yankees and then spent his 8th last year on a 1-year contract with the Detroit Tigers, being the everyday second baseman. Torres, with his age and his previous production, is most likely going to be the highest sought-after second baseman. He is coming off core surgery, but he has been given the green light that he'll be 100% ready to go for spring training and beyond. So shouldn't be any issues there. 2025 year, he played in 145 games. He hit .256 with 16 home runs, 74 runs batted in, and a .745 OPS. He was an all-star selection. He's an interesting case. Gleyber Torres on the free agent market is going to be one of your better offensive options for sure. Pretty versatile in the lineup. Spent a little bit of time in the leadoff spot for the Yankees toward the tail end of his career there. He's been a 2-hitter, but he's also been bottom of the order too, like 6-7 hole. He's flash power. He can hit to all fields. Maybe we could leave a little bit more, a lot to be desired in the on-base percentage department. But all in all, you're going to get a pretty good hitter. The defensive side of things, it's gotten better. But if you're looking for a more well-rounded second baseman, I don't think this is going to be the area you'll find him. It's not to be a huge of a knock on Torres, but that is something that he has struggled with in his game. Pretty consistently, he's graded out as one of the worst second basemen defensively. Take a metric, he's going to be probably most likely towards the bottom there. So you're not going to upgrade your infield defensively, but you'll certainly get a boost offensively for sure with some power. He's pretty solid with runners in scoring position, so you're going to get an increase in RBIs at the second base position. When he's in the leadoff spot, he does a good job of working his way on base, but it seems like when he's in the middle of the order or lower, he tries to become more of a power hitter and open up the strike zone a little bit. So that's the only thing I would worry about. He definitely deserves a bigger contract after playing last year on a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. I think he did, getting the All-Star selection. Had a tough second half, but now seeing him getting that core surgery at the end of the year, pretty soon after them getting eliminated by the Mariners, you got to imagine he was battling that injury for quite some time. So I do think a fully healthy Gleyber Torres over the course of 162 is going to put up even better numbers than what I read off to you a couple minutes ago. But for whoever signs him, I do think, again, could see a world where the A's do it, but I do think it's a lot less likely. And I think you'll have a lot less suitors on Polanco than a Torres. Just age-wise, too. Gleyber Torres entering his age 29 season, so if you sign him to, because I think his expected value is somewhere around 4 years, 70 million, which is pretty team-friendly in my opinion. You're going to get him through all of his prime years, and at the tail end, if he puts together a nice enough career wherever he ends up, he may be vying for one more contract at the end of it. So you better believe that you'll get a motivated Gleyber Torres looking to just prove his value once again and land himself in the middle of hopefully a championship team, but then also for him to get to that next contract for him. Because that's how long he's been around and yet how young he still is. He's got plenty of postseason experience. I do think that's a huge benefit in his toolbox too as well, and he seems to assimilate well with whatever clubhouse he enters next. So I'd be happy if the A's got him. I don't know if it would necessarily be the best fit just because of I think the A's could improve significantly across the board defensively, so I don't think you do that with Torres. But if you want to just become a team that bashes and add on to that top 5 to 10 offense, then Torres does that in those categories. So a very interesting fit there. More than likely, I do think the A's will go in a different direction here, but he's someone that is one of the top second base free agent options as we head into the offseason here. And then last guy I want to talk about, mentioned him on a previous show, but this is a guy that I believe is more of a utility guy, but definitely would slot into the mix of being the everyday second baseman. Going to get a lot more athleticism here a lot more adherence to the defensive side of the ball. But in a pinch, it certainly can play corner outfield. He can play corner infield too as well. Talking about Willie Castro. So he was with the Twins and the Cubs last year. So he started the year with the Twins, and then the Cubs picked him up via the trade to help bolster their roster. Over the 2025 season, he played in 120 games. He hit .226 with 11 home runs, 33 RBIs, and a .679 OPS. He is expected to garner a 2-year, $14 million contract. So he is someone that I believe just adds depth to your overall roster, but is still young enough because he's also entering his age 28 season, I believe, and 29 season as well. So I think he's in the prime and peak of his powers, and he's coming off a down season a little bit offensively, but I do think he would bolster your middle infield defensively significantly. He's pretty good with the glove. I do think he would add to one of the bigger competitions that are going to go on in A spring training. And if the A's are looking to allocate their resources, let's say towards a third base, and you want to add some more depth behind a Muncy, a Geloff, whatever direction the A's are going, I think Castro would fit in well and would get plenty of at-bats between second base, third base when guys need a day off. But then same thing with the corner outfield too as well. So I do think it is very important for the A's to bring in guys. Yes, if we're talking about second base, Castro can be one of the top free agents on the market here for you and can fit your budgetary needs for sure if you're looking to go in a more cost-effective route. All in all, I don't envision Castro at the end of the day who's in-house now, who the A's could have access to in their farm system and out in the open market, and we'll get to a trade. We'll get to potential trades here in a minute. I don't think Castro would be at the top of the list. He'd be somewhere right in the middle that you would see maybe later on in the offseason, maybe a January signing where bring in Castro for 2 years, maybe have a third-year team option depending on how those first 2 years go. But he is an option at the end of the day. All right, let's get to the other side of the transactional means of how a franchise operates, and let's talk about some potential trade candidates. So these trade candidates were compiled just based on research that I had done, based on guys that have been named leading up to the trade deadline, but then also entering the offseason of names that could just be floating out there about. Nothing set in stone, no teams that have moved forward with any action, just some potential names that you can hear there out on the hot stove. So let's start over in the American League. The first trade candidate that stood out was Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. So he is entering his age 32 season, and he's coming off a monster campaign. He was a 2025 All-Star. He appeared in 134 games. He batted .256 with 31 home runs, 83 RBIs, and a .785 OPS. A solid season indeed. Again, this is a guy that you're going to lead the needle much more towards an offensive upgrade as compared to defense. He'll be there grading out kind of towards the levels of where a Gleyber Torres lands. But nevertheless, you're going to get a solid, immediate impact left-handed bat that can bolster the middle of your order just like that. Hits the ball well to all fields and is an above-average run producer. The reason why he's mentioned in these talks is because he is entering the last year of his existing contract with the Rays. It's on a 1-year, $11 million deal. And how the Rays have operated historically is they typically will not pay their guys beyond a certain age, it seems like. Once you reach past those prime years, they'll bring you back on 1-year deals, or they'll look for any opportunity to move you along via trade before your contract is up. So that's kind of where Lowe is currently. He's on the last year of his deal, and the Rays love to unload their guys at that point. Because if they feel that he's going to go out there and garner a lot more on the free agent market outside of where the Rays like to maintain their payroll, then they might as well get something for him while his value is as high as it's going to be too, in their view as well. So I do think he falls into that category. He'll become a free agent following the 2026 season, so there's no restrictions or anything like that. He would be a very interesting fit for the A's. Again, wouldn't improve the defense, but man, would that be fun slotting in behind Rooker and Kurtz. I don't know what that conglomerate would look like, but you would have a lot of thump in that order. That would be, and you'd be looking at a team and a guy like Lowe that's building a postseason like depth-wise lineup. So that would be something that would get you exciting. That would move the needle significantly. With his age and knowing that he's on the last year of his deal, I don't believe it would take too big of a trade package. We can explore this at a future episode for sure. Let us know your thoughts and comments, but I think this would be a solid trade candidate for the A's to engage with as well. The Rays are a familiar trade partner. They've been in discussions and completed a trade with Springs and Lopez. So there's at least some familiarity there and some good positive communications that have taken place prior. So just something to keep an eye on. I feel like Lowe will get traded somewhere. I don't know if he'll necessarily be the A's, but don't be surprised if you see his name out there in the trade market and him wearing a new uniform for the 2026 season. Next trade candidate. So this one is a little bit more. And these next two guys, actually, we're going to talk about 3 trade candidates today. So these next two are a little bit more unorthodox. These are both infielders, but not necessarily second baseman by trade. But I do think these are two guys on teams. They're not really sure what direction they're going. And it may give these franchises an opportunity to help them hit the reset button a little bit, retool their farm system, retool their philosophies at the major league level, wherever their trajectory may go. So that's why for this first guy, I heard this rumor, and it may be for teams that are looking for a shortstop. But then it got me thinking that I think this guy, because he hasn't graded out that well at short defensively as well, that maybe a change of, besides franchise, but also a change of position could really help get this guy back on track. I'm talking about C.J. Abrams, who is the starting shortstop for the Washington Nationals. I believe a position change for him from short to second, you're going to see a lot better of a defensive version of him. Because I do think the arm strength's not the problem. I believe it's him consistently fielding the baseball. But I do think having more ground to cover at short as compared to second might be just a little bit too much of a workload for him to fully encompass at the major league level. And Nationals fans, if you are listening, let me know if I'm right, if I'm wrong, somewhere in between. We can build upon this conversation for sure. But when I look at his defensive metrics, he is usually in the below average range. So I just think if you have someone like that he has all the tools offensively for sure to be an all-star, no doubt about it. I think that the athleticism is there. You got to love the way he runs the bases. I do think the arm strength is there, but I do think potentially having a little bit less range to cover could be beneficial and have a little bit less for him to have to worry about on the mental side of the game. So I would welcome that. And if you have that in the equation, then I definitely would love to see Abrams get brought over in a trade to play second base. That would garner a little bit more of a deal because he is so young. I mean, he's still only entering his age 25 season. He's been around since 2022. He's entering his first year of arbitration eligibility. He is expected to garner $5.5 million for the 2026 season. That is quite team-friendly indeed. And if you do land Abrams' services in a trade, you'll have him under team control until the conclusion of the 2029 season. That is certainly someone of all-star potential quality, of talent that you can build around and allocate more of your resources to building around the overall roster as compared to having it tied up into a handful of guys. So I just thought that was an interesting one. And then another guy kind of in the similar boat in terms of where Nolan Gorman of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's entering his age 25. He's entering his age 26 season. And he becomes a free agent following the 2029 year as well. So if you do land this guy in a trade, you are going to get someone that's very cost effective. He entering his first year of arbitration eligibility is expected to garner $2.8 million, right around there. But he's someone that can play multiple positions in your infield as well. He can play second base, he can play third base, play a corner outfield in a pinch. On the year, he had a bit of a down year, 205, 14 home runs, 46 RBIs, and a 666 OPS. But I do think there's a lot of talent in that left-handed bat. I think he just had a down year as compared to where I think the St. Louis Cardinals as a franchise are kind of stuck in a weird spot. They're not good, but they're not bad. And they're a franchise that historically normally is consistently going to the postseason, having successful regular seasons, winning a couple rounds at least, having some World Series postseason success. but it just hasn't been there for the last 3 to 4 years for St. Louis. So you're kind of wondering them as a franchise. I know there have been rumors that Nolan Arenado is going to be on the trade market for them. Obviously, the last year they didn't re-sign Paul Goldschmidt. And then it just kind of seems like there's just some question marks around their belief in Jordan Walker. But then they've brought in guys like a Sonny Gray in the free agent market. So they're kind of in that weird in-between that I don't know what direction they're really being pulled in. But I do believe if there's a trade that aligns where the Cardinals can maybe build a little bit for the future at least, the right trade package could have them send off someone like a Gorman for even just like 2 prospects to bolster their offense, their pitching, whatever. They use a little bit of everything, in my opinion, because the Cardinals at the end of the day just don't have an identity. So I think if they're kind of looking to hit the reset button in a way, Gorman could be a piece where they can bring in at least a couple of prospects, maybe an arm, just kind of depending on what the Cardinals are looking for. Just something to have some sort of semblance of direction. Because you can see on the A side of things, you see the trajectory they're moving. But the Cardinals, I'm going to do a deeper dive for them at some point over on our other podcast, but I just can't put my finger on it. It doesn't seem like the Cardinals are in any gear if we're talking in terms of from a car perspective. So very interesting. I do think this is a deal where you get some more depth at second base, but you can have depth at third base. Again, this is just kind of where the second baseman market is at currently. Like having to get creative a little bit, especially on the for the trade candidates side of things. There's plenty of second basemen in the market that if you're looking for one, I'm not necessarily saying there's tons out there that are going to turn your franchise around completely. But there's a lot of guys that can fill in that are serviceable, 1 to 2 year deals. You have a couple at the top of that echelon of the market. They're going to garner extended deals like a Polanco and Torres. But out there on the trade market, notice the one that stood out to me was Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. But everyone else, one was going to require a position change, and the other one is a second baseman, third baseman. So that kind of gives you a forecast and a picture of where the second base market is at currently. And if we hear anything in the news, especially how it may pertain to the A's specifically, we'll be sure to keep you updated. But that's a position, the A's, they're going to have some in-house candidates like a Muncy go for that role. But really just kind of depends on how they feel like the lineup is going to shake out. If they go for their upgraded third base and have Muncy at second, or like I said, vice versa, upgraded second, and you have Muncy play third. In my opinion, based on what I'm seeing here on the market, I would try to make that big splash at third base. I think there's more options out there, and then you have Muncy be your everyday second baseman. Alongside Wilson, you have that natural chemistry right there at the end of the day. I mean, looking at this list, you bring in a Torres or a Polanco, that'll move Toledo. You bring in a guy like Brandon Lowe, that'll move the needle too as well. Everyone else, in my opinion, you're getting more depth, and you're going to get them to push more of whoever ends up being the everyday second baseman to get the most out of them. So really curious to see how it all shakes out. And I look forward to looking back on this episode to see if the A's did entertain any trade talks or free agent talks with any of these guys that we've talked about, and what direction the A's move forward with at second base for this year and beyond. Before we get on out of here, there was just one more thing of note in the news pertaining to Athletics Nation. So if you didn't hear, over the weekend, I believe, or it might have been Friday or Saturday, but A's social media commenting on their posts is back on to fans. So after 655 days, the A's have turned commenting back on their Instagram and X platforms. There's been just so much turbulence between the franchise and its fans over the final season in Oakland. So the reason why the social media department decided to mute comments on their social media platforms is just because they were getting bombarded with vitriol from the Oakland fan base. Understandable. I mean, any fan base of any professional sport anywhere is going to be rightfully upset that their team that they've rooted for their whole lives and generations before, and they were hoping for generations to come, are being uprooted from their home and being taken somewhere else. While, in the A's situation, it is the same franchise, but they're not playing in the same home. So Oakland, the people of Oakland, felt like they had a significant part of them taken away from them. Like they saw that they just went through that with the Raiders moving from Oakland to Las Vegas, and now they're in the process of having to deal with that, the same thing, them going from Oakland to Sacramento before Vegas once the new stadium is opened and built for the 2028 season as planned. So you can understand why so many fans would be upset. But I guess from the A's side of things, I guess all of the negative communication and negative verbiage on their pages wouldn't have looked professional. I think there, all in all, is a better way to go about it. And maybe there's a way, obviously it's going to make more work for their department, but having more of a focus on removing comments that simply go against social media guidelines and policy. Anything that goes against that should be removed, and I believe that these social media platforms have those services at their in motion anyway. But I think to just not give fans any opportunity to utilize free speech and say what's on their mind, as long as it's within the lines, I don't think that was the right move. Especially where you're having negative momentum, you're ripping this team out from a team's home, from a home fan base already, and now they can't even have a voice. Something doesn't add up there. It doesn't seem right to me. I think that just heightened the anger of the fan base quickly. Not having somewhere they can go to voice their displeasure. I mean, that's supposed to be the beauty of our country, is free speech. Being able to have an outlet to say what's on your mind. And now, being able to reopen it to fans, I think you're going to see even more severe commenting. Now, I'm on social media more for business as compared to scrolling consistently. But the athletics pages are one for our podcast that I visit quite frequently. So the comment section is somewhere that I don't typically land and still love to explore too often. But it's going to pique my interest because with it being gone for nearly 2 full years, I'm really curious to see what the pulse of this fan base is going to be. Because from the time they shut it off to now, we haven't been able to see or hear from the fan base of, maybe there are some people from Oakland that are still hanging on supporting this team. Now, I know that a lot of it's going to be a lot of rage and anger towards the ownership group, them not being in Oakland anymore. Totally understand that. That's going to be the bulk of the commenting. But who knows if there was a small sect of fans that were still excited to be able to continue to follow on with this team from the move from Oakland to Sacramento and beyond, they maybe got turned off by this and maybe they're on to another team or other ventures, spending their time elsewhere. I mean, this has led to an absolute disconnect. And this is according to Jason Burke of Athletics on SI, their ex-followers, formerly known as Twitter, over the last year, I believe, has gone down from 605,000 to 586,800. It's not good. Users flocked back over the weekend just to pour out their comments about owner John Fisher, athletics franchise as a whole, sell the team, all that stuff. That's just been built up for 655 days. So instead of being able to have a comment section where, there's always going to be that, but then you also may have a solid portion of the comment section engaging in some good athletics talk about Nick Kurtz winning the Silver Slugger. There's going to be none of that. And hopefully some of that returns once games return. There's still going to be a ton of vitriol. Like I said, very understood. But this just could have been handled so much differently. I've never seen anything like it either. for them to have a social media platform nationally, globally recognized, just how all professional franchises are, to lock out a universal feature that anyone has a right on any other account, unless that account specifically blocks a person. Again, probably going to be due to violating some social media guidelines that are already in place. So it's set there in stone for you to police itself. You don't have to. You doing that as the franchise, as the social media team, whoever's responsible for it, just made this situation a whole lot worse, unfortunately. So hopefully, I do think the announcement of them doing it now is a good move, is the best move they could have done. I think it's too little too late. But I understand why they're announcing it now after the season, so that you're hoping all these comments come pumping out, and kind of lose a little bit of that steam by the time next season comes around. Although I'm sure it's going to be very heightened on opening day and during opening week. But you're hoping as the season rolls along, that comment section gets a little bit more and more back to the norm. But it's going to take some time, because this fan base is quite passionate. They are. It's a historic franchise. You can see the journey we've been taking with this player in A's history. So many greats have walked through the doors of the Coliseum or wherever this A's franchise has been for decades. But the heartbeat of this franchise has always been the fan base. And you're going to see it continue to pump and pump and pump. And I just hope this doesn't take away from a season 2026 that I do think could be a really good one between the lines for this team. This offensive lineup has a young, exciting core that reminds many of these A's teams from the 70s. And you know how those teams ended up. When you want to see that again for this group, hopefully the focus gets back to the talent between the lines and hopefully a pursuit of a postseason spot. But totally understand this had to be talked about because there was such a glaring disconnect between the organization and its fan base. This is something that has been long overdue for the comment section on social media to be made available to fans once again. But hopefully the damage done can be repaired over time and isn't permanent, set in stone, because that would be a shame. It would be a shame because this is a team that's ascending with players that you can root for on a daily basis, easy to get behind, hard workers. They want to win for themselves, for the fan base. And hopefully this fan base can all get connected back together with its franchise. But hopefully the franchise does its part significantly to make up for the damage they've caused over the last several years. All right. With that brings us to a conclusion of another edition of A's Day. Sorry to end on kind of a more serious note this time, but I think it had to be talked about. You know, we're here talking about all the promise we're seeing from the player development from the A's young ascending core roster. But we got to talk about everything. We got to keep it real here. Can't always be sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies. At the end of the day, this is life. There's going to be good, there's going to be bad, and there's going to be stuff all in between. So we're going to cover it all, just so we stay in tune and stay connected on what the pulse of A's Nation truly is. And I thought it was really important for us to make sure that if you want your voice to be heard about any post, any opinion about the A's, let it be heard. Do not let your voice be silenced, because it's your right as a human, as an individual, whether right, wrong, or somewhere in between. As long as it doesn't cross the lines, you are entitled to your public opinion, no doubt about it, and no one can take that away from you. So, on today's show, we ended obviously talking about the A's social media turning their commenting feature back on. But on more positive notes, we did talk about Nick Kurtz winning the Silver Slugger for the American League team at first base. Congrats to the Big Amish once again. We made note of some spring training matchups that you want to keep an eye on during the month of March. And then we explored the second base market from the free agency and trade perspectives. At the end of the day, we noticed that it wasn't too fruitful of a crop, but definitely some options for the A's to explore and determine if they are a good fit for this current and future roster. We will be back on Friday's show. We're going to be talking about the winner of the American League Rookie of the Year. It is going to be announced later tonight. The A's have 2 finalists, so the numbers say that it will be one of those 2 that take home the hardware. Of course, the finalists are Nick Kurtz, Jacob Wilson, and Roman Anthony of the Boston Red Sox. So we'll talk about Friday, who ends up being the winner, and any history tied around the award recipient there as well. And then we will continue on with our next segment of This Player in A's History. This time, we are going to take it to the 1970s. We're going to select a player most likely that was on one of those championship teams that we hinted at. So you'll have to stay tuned on Friday's show about who we do a deep dive and a history lesson about. Hope you've been enjoying that segment, because we have certainly been enjoying creating those for you and learning about many A's greats that have donned the green and gold. And we'll be sure to update you on any other news, any other transactions, or any other actions that have been going on in A's universe between now and Friday's show. That's all I've got for you. Appreciate each and every one of you stopping in to kick off your week with us here at A's Day. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. We'll be back Friday talking about everything related to the Athletics. Holy Toledo, let's go A's. Have a great week, everyone.